Hi, welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. We have been bringing you some goodness from Adelaide recently, and today we have no other than one of the OGs of Adelaide. He has been on the scene for a really long time, and he is definitely one of the stalwarts of the BJJ community. Not sure how we've taken so long to get him on, but here he is, Leo Arruda. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here and have a chat with you guys.
It's also been a really long time since we've had a Portuguese accent on. So we love to have the Brazilians on. It's been a couple of episodes since we've had someone on. So that's always awesome for our listeners to hear. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Yeah, man. Do you know Tiago Stefanuti? Do you know him?
Yeah, very much. He's a good friend.
Yeah, cool. We just did our last, maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago. We actually did the episode and he was at his house in Brazil, man. And we got a flavor of what his life is like, a taste. And it was just like, oh, I want to be there, man. I really want to be there.
And Leo, you've just come back from Brazil, yeah? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I came back 1 week ago. And by the way, I had a chat with Tiago when I was there, and unfortunately we couldn't get together for a roll session so it's very hectic once you're there. And he lives a little bit far away of the capital, which is São Paulo. But we had a good chat.
Awesome, man.
What's the scene like over there in Brazil? What's things like the jiu-jitsu compared to the last? Did you go often? How long since you were last there?
I was there 5 years ago. That was a long time, but lots changed over there at the moment. Very strong jiu-jitsu. Mainly they doing with the gi, training, the gi, and very competitive, and they have a very competitive train. Very strong. And I was able to at least do 1 session a day. And it was hard. Was really tough and really challenging.
Yeah,
it's interesting, right? So I'm just in this like inquiry at the moment. Like Australia has less black belts, right? A lot less. So when you go to Brazil or somewhere where there's just a lot more black belts on the mat, do you think that the standard of black belt is higher when there's a lot more black belts on the mat? Like, does iron sharpen iron, or do more people get their black belts, or is it just totally unrelated? Like, what's the level like here of a black belt versus the level of a black belt there, in your opinion? Talk a bit about that.
Definitely the level is really high. Not just black belts, but purple belts, brown belts, even blue belts. It's really high. I was really surprised to see what was happening over there. And definitely iron sharpens iron. I could see that. But we're not far. We're not far here in Australia. The black belts here, the level, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And Leo, you mentioned that they're still mostly training in the gi. So because in the US, for instance, the no gi scene has really taken off. Has that not quite transferred across into Brazil, or?
Slowly. I think the majority of the competitions, IBJJF, the CBJJE, pretty much with the gi. You have, like, let's say 10 competitions, 8 competitions gi, and 2 competitions no gi, and not much invitational competitions or events. So I think that's the difference. In America, you see lots of fight to win. You see the front grappling, scene very strong, and they do lots of matchups over there. But in Brazil, it's still like the concept is still the traditional competitions.
And what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, Anton. Do you at your club at Arruda BJJ, do you train still mostly in the gi, or do you split it half and half with no gi? Because I know there's a lot of clubs that train only no gi or predominantly no gi here in Australia.
We do, let's say, nowadays it's 60% gi, and it's turning very strong no gi into 40%, and pretty much I think in the whole Australia the no gi scene is very strong because of Lachlan Giles, Craig Jones, and all like the guys that are competing very well overseas. And it's not just my club, but a majority of the clubs east of Australia, the no gi, it's very strong.
For sure.
It's
for sure.
interesting. I mean, there are a lot of like in MMA, there are still obviously a lot of great Brazilian no-gi grapplers who make it, at a high level to championship level. But you're right. Like, I wonder what happens if Brazil doesn't move fast enough with this no-gi thing. Like, do they get left behind, or is it easier to translate, gi to no-gi than no-gi to gi? Or yeah, will Brazil ever get left behind if they don't move fast enough? I guess is my question.
Yeah, but I think it's all about the knowledge. And if you consider the instructionals, they all in English, and the access for the Brazilians is not that easy. The majority doesn't speak English, and here in Australia, it's so easy, to buy a bundle or even a single instructional and get some studies on it. And I think that's the difference. The information is more it's more accessible here for us than the Brazilians. Huh?
Wow, man.
At the
No one
moment,
said that before. That's interesting, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone
Yeah.
has to do some translating,
Yes.
of some no-gi instructionals. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah. And Leo, tell us a little bit about your beginnings because, yeah, so you've been in Australia like 15 or so years now, but like tell us how you came here, how you discovered jiu-jitsu. Give us a bit of background.
Yeah, I arrived here in 2008, and before that, I was living in the Middle East in a country called Bahrain, which is a small country, and I was already teaching jiu-jitsu in Bahrain, but was a change more for the lifestyle and the opportunity. So then I came to Australia. I arrived here in 2008, and then straight away started teaching jiu-jitsu, and I didn't stop competing since then. And was a small scene, but very strong, I would say. There wasn't something that we could say that we could not note, but yeah, it was small, but lots of good and strong guys. I remember back in 2008. But comparing with the moment, it's that's incredible how jiu-jitsu is growing, and I think it's still a lot of gap, and it's not even close to explode yet. I think we have a massive time to get into that level where jiu-jitsu is gonna be all over the place. It's still growing, and yeah.
Awesome, man. In Bahrain, is that where you discovered jiu-jitsu, or was it before then?
Nah. I started jiu-jitsu when I was 19 years old. So that was I would say part of my martial art life. I started martial art when I was 6 years old with judo, and then I changed that for aikido. And with aikido, I spent a lot of time until I get my black belt, and then I discovered jiu-jitsu. I think it was the strongest martial art I ever seen, and I always had a curiosity to try, and I fall in love since the first day. And with jiu-jitsu, also got me close to the wrestling. So then I trained a little bit of the wrestling with the national team back in Brazil, in São Paulo, and since then I didn't stop and being part of my life since then.
Brilliant, man. What about the Aikido? How did that impact or the other martial? Obviously, judo impacts BJJ directly. Is there any remnants of your Aikido black belt in the way that you compete and the way that you do jiu-jitsu now?
Technically, it's hard to say that, but it's quite impossible to apply Aikido techniques in jiu-jitsu. But the mindset is always there with me. I don't like the mindset of crushing. I prefer the mindset of adapting and flowing, and I think that's my strategy when I'm competing, or even when I'm sparring and training in general everyday jiu-jitsu.
That's beautiful, man. I like that a lot, like flowing with your partner's energy and doing all of that sort of stuff that Aikido is known for.
Yeah, I really I don't like to use much strength, and just makes me tired just to think about it. and there is a good saying that if you go to competitions in Brazil, they always say, okay, you're gonna compete today. Okay, you're gonna make a little bit of strength, or you're gonna make a little bit of power, and they still saying that. And when they say that to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to compete. Maybe not in that way.
I love it, man. I could learn from you.
And Leo, so you got your black belt in 2006, and then you actually won like quite a few Sao Paulo state championships, and you won a CBJJE World Championship in 2007, and then again in 2010. So can you talk to us a little bit about that, when you were like still a relatively new black belt to be competing? I've heard a lot about the standard at those Brazilian state championships. What was that like?
Yeah, that was part of a good time competing in Brazil. Back that time, I could compete against André Galvao. I compete against Lucas Lepri. I compete against Lucas Leite. All these big names, and that was when I was a white belt, purple belt, blue belt, and yeah, that was a massive experience. I could say that, and yeah, that was a massive curve learn for me. And turning into a black belt and competing in those competitions, I think that was incredible good, to be able to achieve a good title. And I compete four times in the CBJJE World Championships, and managed to win 4 times. And the last one was 3 weeks ago. So I was in Brazil, and I didn't plan to compete, but as I was training and at the club, all my friends ready to compete, and I think nothing better than share the bullpen area with your best mates, and I was keen to do that again one more time, and I don't know when I'm gonna be able to repeat this, and I had 16 black belts in my division. Which was for me a massive challenge. Usually here in Australia we have last competition was a Pumpex, and I had 4 on my division. Now I'm having 16 and 4 fights. There was something different, and I was keen to experience that. And thanks God I managed to get to the finals and get the title again.
Yeah.
Did you manage to execute that game plan you're talking about, of like not crushing and flowing, and in a division that big? Did you manage to preserve your gas tank,
or is that just for training, that way of rolling?
I think it's in general. I think it's in general. I don't like the idea of really getting tired. And I think applying strength and power up the positions, it's something that's not pleasant for me. I prefer to find my game and be able to position my rhythm, and through my rhythm, not spend that much of energy, and sometimes that's not possible. That's when we need to come back and review all the strategies to don't be put it on the position where I need to run after, and then usually when you're running after, that's when you're going to spend lots of energy and probably you're not winning, and that's something that's not quite right.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, if you need strength, that's time to go back and look at why you needed strength and go from there and train based on that. I love that, man. I'm going to take that on right now. Thank you.
No worries. I think it's important to have a fairly bit of fitness. I mean, training, resistance, and having, a little bit of, strength conditioning and stuff like that. That's something that I'm always doing, but I'm doing that because I need some sort of foundation. But it's not something that I like to do. Just the idea of lifting weights is something also that it's crushing, into my mindset. Yeah. But it's necessary. It's necessary. Maybe that's why you can impose your rhythm, because you're gonna be first, and being first maybe depends of how fast you are or your agility, or
Got it.
explosiveness. Yeah.
What would a typical training week look like for you, Leo? Are you still training at that level where you are aiming to be competitive, or are you more focused on your coaching generally, or how do you sort of break up your week?
Yeah, that's a dilemma. That's been my dilemma, because I really enjoy being on the mats and training with all my students, and I don't miss one sparring session. But at the same time, I need to keep my eye on the development of everyone. The way I like to run the club is trying to touch everyone in a specific way that maybe is not touching physically, but having a contact where I can really help them somehow. And I believe that the club has two different ways to be run. One is to develop who is there, to make jiu-jitsu part of their lives, and help them to be a good father or a better person at work, or be able to really strive in different areas of life, and also to form competitors. So then I'm always trying to be in the center, and dividing myself to both ways until I can. until my body it's allows me to keep perceiving both sides. And I believe that one day I'm gonna have to choose, just turn towards the side that I'm gonna be less competitive and more focused on the developing of the art itself.
And you're obviously a great coach. Going back a step, Lucas Lepri, and did you say Andre Galvao as well? You competed against? Was that?
Yeah, Lucas Leach as well.
Yeah,
Lucas Leach. Yeah.
These people, like, as white belts, like, I'm really fascinated to know, are they just a more amplified version of themselves nowadays, or were they just a frail, nerdy, like, what were they? Someone different as a white belt, and then they transformed, or were they always that person and always a killer even at white belt? Like, talk a bit about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I recall fighting these Brazilian championships in Rio de Janeiro, and back at the time I was featherweight, was a blue belt, and my first fight wasn't. My second fight actually was against Andre Galvao, and Andre Galvao was also featherweight, and he had to lose weight, and probably he was under. He took some diuretic like tablets or something like that, and he was even like dropping some fluids, I would say, like on the corner of the blue pen area. That was a little bit disgusting, but yeah. And that competition, by the way, he didn't win, but he lost the finals. But what was interesting in that match was the first time that I saw somebody really incredible. I lost by 2 points, I remember, but it was incredible experience. I couldn't do much in that fight. Yes. And wow. I was purple belt, and back in the days, to fight the world championships, you had to qualify. So it doesn't matter if you're blue belt or black belt. You had to qualify. You had to fight you had to get at least third place on the state competitions. So all the states in Brazil, and I believe in America also, they had some competitions that you had to qualify like that. And there was this competition. And I went to the finals against Lucas Lepri, and I remember being ready to get in the mats, and Lucas Lepri wasn't there, and they were calling his name, and he ran sprinting in, towards the table, and I was like, man, I don't know what's gonna happen now, and was the same style of jiu-jitsu you can see nowadays, but a little bit like that. Nowadays, as you said, is amplified, but back at that time was also an incredible jiu-jitsu, and I lost the fight.
Wow, man. Thanks for
I lost the fight.
That was exciting.
I lost the fight, but I was the final, and I got second place, but I qualified for the World Championships that year. And that year he won the purple belt world championships.
Wow.
What do you think about that, Leo? Do you think that they should reinstate that you need to qualify for those sort of tournaments at all belts, or do you think it's good the way it is, where anyone can kind of rock up apart from the black belts for the world championships? What are your thoughts around that?
But that was different, Kim. Back at the time, it was different. The competition was in Brazil, and the volume of competitors was tremendous. Was incredible, and I don't think that is going to work nowadays. I don't think that's going to work nowadays. I thought the last World Championships in Brazil, and then before they moved to California, that was 2007, 2006. That was 2006. The last one I was brown belt, yes, 2006. And the only problem I see is that it's not like you have some good Brazilians, good level, tough guys, but they can't afford to go. So you can't really measure these guys. So and sometimes they have the structure, they have the money, but for some reasons they can't get the visa. So then you can't see these guys. Besides that, I think it's okay. The black belts, they need to qualify. But the brown belts, the purple and blue, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they have that with ADCC, obviously the trials, and that seems to be like a lot of people work towards the trials, and then that creates a lot. One thing about the qualifying is it creates a lot of hype. That's what I like. It's like you got to get through something to get there. I like that. I know that I would not make it. So I don't like it for me, but I like it for the entertainment factor. It's really exciting. So yeah, great. And what's on your agenda now as far as being a like for your own training? What do you work on now at your level? What interests you about your own Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu development nowadays?
Yeah, I'm really focused on my club, to try to keep the consistency and trying to keep everyone, improving the levels. But as far as I can go, I try to keep, like always fit and keep my rhythm of, like rolling and the level of jiu-jitsu that I could train every day, up to a level that if there is a competition, I could register and try, because I'm still, enjoying the adrenaline, and it's that discomfort that, brings me so much. And I like to have that sort of target that aligns my life into something very helpful and healthy. In order to get to the competition, is not just for me. It's not just going there and sign up, but also looking after the nutrition and having like the mind prepared to be able to receive the amount of stress that happens the week before, the day before, and stuff like that. If you compete, you know what I'm saying. And after that, I believe that there is a massive reflex of with what happened at that stage, and creates this sort of how can I say, this development that is invisible towards the jiu-jitsu itself. So even the techniques that you used to apply, maybe it's gonna be, you're gonna see in a different view, and you're gonna apply in a different way. You're gonna have more confidence, and the self-esteem in relation to life is gonna be a little bit better, because it's like you're being crushed, and then when that goes away, independent of the result, is that sort of spring action that you're gonna be, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Leo, I've actually been and trained at your club years ago, about 7-8 years ago, when I was a purple belt. I don't think I met you there, but the level was certainly very, very high. What do you think goes into a good club? What are the ingredients that make a good jiu-jitsu club for someone that's looking?
definitely the right information. The right information. I mean, information as the technique you're going to have in the club. So yeah, I see some of the black belts, and this is something that I've been discussing a lot with like years and years. There's some black belts, some instructors, they don't teach what they believe is good, because they really afraid to that could be used against them.
Wow.
And yeah, yeah, and that's something, that I really criticize a lot. But the information, it's like the type of the techniques you're teaching, and nowadays you have so much going on, and you have this diversity of, like styles and lapel games. You have this pressure pass game. You have all these different, and you need to pinch what is the best in each style, and trying to keep that alive in your club. You never know what style your students is gonna choose, or what style fits the body type, and you need to prepare them for what is coming. If they go overseas to compete, or if they go interstate, you never know what they're training in the other clubs. So trying to cover as much as you can the good information, pinching, what you believe that is going to be more functional and effective in a way that it's going to develop more the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you end up? Obviously, I mean, you obviously create a great club culture, and you're great for the scene in Adelaide. How did you end up in Adelaide? Because like, you've come from Bahrain, to Australia, and I don't think people say you got to get to Adelaide. It's the hot spot in
Not
Australia.
in 2008, for sure. I mean, maybe now.
Yeah,
I think now it's changed a lot, but 14 years ago it was quite different. Why was Adelaide chosen versus, say, the Gold Coast or Sydney?
Yeah.
Yeah. I answered this question like 100 times, and I'm pretty happy to. I'm pretty happy to answer again, because it's something. It's good. I came from this city, São Paulo, and it's the whole population of Australia, right? So I was living there, and I always wish for a quieter place. And before coming to Australia, I did this research, and we found Adelaide. I came here with my ex-partner, and we found Adelaide, like through the research, and we said, look, that's a quieter place. We don't wanna spend 2 hours a day in the traffic. We don't wanna be like careful driving around with the windows closed, and yeah, it's São Paulo. São Paulo, if you've never been there, it's a very fast city, and it's not my cup of tea, I would say. It's something quieter, and that's the reason I choose Adelaide. And every time I go to Melbourne, every time I go to Sydney, I miss Adelaide, because of this dynamic. Melbourne, usually when I go to Melbourne, I always stay close to St Kilda, and to get to St Kilda, depending of the day and the time, of course, it's like 1 hour, and it's like, man, I'm feeling like I'm in São Paulo again, And when I go to Sydney, and when I go to Sydney, usually I go near northern beaches, and the same thing, you need to cross. It's 1 hour and a bit, and it's like, wow, that feels like I'm in São Paulo again. So the main reason was to find a quieter place. And man, I love so much to live here in Adelaide.
I'm going to get you a t-shirt, man, and it's going to be like, why can't your city be more like Adelaide? That's what it's going to be.
I think that Adelaide often wins those awards for like the most livable city and things like that, doesn't it? Because it's meant to be one of the best places in the world to live. That's what they say.
It used to be horrible.
Yeah, it was a good place next time.
You've made it great, brother. That's what you've done. You've made Adelaide good. So well done.
And Leo, you've been there for quite some time. You would have seen a lot of change in both the Adelaide scene, I suppose, and the Australian jiu-jitsu scene. Can you tell us at all about that? Like, I guess when you came on, was there like just one or two other jiu-jitsu clubs? Like, how has it changed in the last 14 years in Adelaide?
Adelaide has a great environment, and I'm quite happy to talk about this jiu-jitsu scenario in Adelaide at the moment, because it's very nice. It's sort of this sense of community. So lots of cross training going on, which wasn't in the map many years ago. So it was a little bit. The instructors, they were a little bit closing the doors for other students and just keeping the students training, at the club, and that's something that I never agree. And nowadays the scenario is fantastic. It's the sense of community, sharing knowledge and cross training, and everyone understands where they belong, which is that's the main point. If you know where you belong, if you're happy at your place, why you're gonna be afraid of going to another club and just like sharing some jiu-jitsu or learning from different people. And I think that's the idea of development. It's to be able to have contact with diversity.
Powerful, man. I think that's
Sure.
like all human relationships. Like if you're in with a husband and a wife, if they're free to explore other people, I'm not talking about sleeping with other people or anything like that, but if they're free to explore deep connections with other people, they're going to grow and learn and bring things back, and then we live in a culture where it's very difficult to kind of spread our wings sometimes, but I'm really glad that the jiu-jitsu scene is doing that, and I know, as you say, it hasn't always been like that. I imagine it'd be hard, like growing up in Brazil, because that's like so old school, man. I'm surprised that Brazilian head coaches can be so welcoming and inviting. So I acknowledge you, man, because the training over there was very closed door for, I'm imagining, most of your childhood, so,
But the way I learned was, Anthony, it's the way I do nowadays. My master, he always said, if you're happy here, that's okay. If you're not happy here, you find your happiness. And he always welcomed everyone to come and train. And I think he was one of the pioneers of like cross training in Sao Paulo. I remember having different clubs coming and training in a specific day, and we going to the clubs, to cross train also. And yeah, so I believe when the instructor is afraid of the own level, or if they concerned about they not quite on the level, that's when they restrict the students to not see what's going on outside. Fearing that they could like see something better and change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, I think what you're saying is like there's a confidence in your own abilities or whatever of your coaching, so that you can feel comfortable to allow your students to see what else is around and know that they're going to come back to you if they're happy. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and also everyone is different. Maybe somebody's gonna come and try my class, and maybe it's not going to suit that person, and because of the way I teach, and the person prefers a casual way, to train, more relaxed, less discipline, and they're gonna find a place like that, and that's the way they prefer to learn. And what can I do? I'm gonna force the person to like my style? No.
Yeah, and even if they love it, right? Even if they love your style, they love your club can't be everything to everyone, and it can't even be everything to the people who love your club and want to stay at your club. Like, they need stuff from everywhere in order to grow. So, man, I acknowledge you, man. We're nearly out of time, so like we've got 2 minutes left. Are there any messages you'd like to get out there? Anything you'd like to talk about before we part ways.
Any final thoughts?
Guys, I'm really happy to be here, chatting with you. Thanks so much, Kim, for inviting me, and Anto also. And man, it was really a pleasure to be able to share a little bit of who I am and the ways I think about jiu-jitsu. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah,
no worries. I forgot to ask at the beginning, are you because you got your belt 2006, so does that make you a 5th degree? Are you
next year?
Next year, fourth. Wow. So yeah, you're I think one of our highest ranking guests that we've had on. So thank you very much for giving up your time and sharing your story. We will have this. We've got quite a few episodes already saved up. We're trying to take a few weeks off over the holidays, so we won't have this out until towards the end of January, if that's okay. But when we do, if you could share it, that would be fantastic and help to grow our audience a little bit more. So thank you very much once again, and look forward to seeing you on the mat.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.